throughout history, women have been used in wartime as a means of distracting servicemen with mind games that create doubts about themselves and the job that they were there to do. Axis Sally was just such a woman. Richard Lucas joins me this morning. He has written about this woman, and that is what we'll talk about. Mr. Lucas, how are you?
I'm fine. Thank you, Gloria, for having me.
Thank you for joining me. You gave me a little scare there this morning.
No, I had to get into the room.
Okay,
but we're good.
By the time I got in here, I was out of breath. But anyways, it's good to have you. Axis Sally, the American voice of Nazi Germany. What made you embark on this project?
Well, about 7 years ago, I was listening to some World War II era broadcasts, and I had heard in the past Tokyo Rose, who had broadcast for the Japanese. She was an American woman, also tried for treason. And I heard some men, but what really brought me to Axis Sally was the fact that when I listened to her broadcast, she was a very skilled broadcaster, first of all. She was had a refined accent that ran almost counter to the propaganda and anti-Semitic words she was saying. And the other thing that I noticed was that on this webpage there were two different women who were called Axis Sally. There were more than one Tokyo Rose, but what I did not know was that there was indeed more than one Axis Sally. The one that I've written the biography about, her name is Mildred Gillars. She was born in Ohio, or born in Portland, Maine, but she moved to Ohio, went to college at Ohio Wesleyan, and she wanted to become an actress. And after a failed career on Broadway, she ended up in 1934 at the dawn of the Third Reich, living in Germany. She lived there from 1934 to 1939. She started to have some success. She had work, and she was a film critic. She did a number of different things. And then the war broke out in 1939. She had become involved with a German citizen. He was a physicist, and she planned to marry him. So she, when the United States was telling everyone to come back to America because war was imminent in 1940, 1941, he told her that if she went home, he would not marry her and that they would be finished. So what ended up happening was she decided to stay, counting on that. She got a job with the Reich Radio, which was the German radio. All she was doing was spinning records and making announcements at the time. She was a DJ. And what ended up happening was, by the time Pearl Harbor occurred, she was stuck in Germany and could not get out. And her husband-to-be was sent to the Eastern Front, where he was eventually killed.
Well, let's talk a bit about, because her husband-to-be was a Nazi, but she was also involved with a Jewish lover. The relationship broke up. So how did she get from a Jewish lover to a Nazi?
Well, that is really something that I discovered in researching this. It took about 5 years to research. But what I was trying to do was find out exactly how she got to that point. Well, when the Depression occurred, she couldn't get work in New York. And she became involved in an almost cult-like, it was a somewhat popular philosopher, almost like a cult. And she met this man named Bernard Metz. And he was the right-hand man and writer for a Armenian philosopher named George Gurdjieff, who was somewhat popular in the United States and France at that time. He had a place in France where they taught his philosophy of life. And Metz was British and Jewish, and he was very much involved with this Gurdjieff philosophy. Well, Mildred met Metz, became involved with Metz, and followed him when he left France and England to go to Algiers. He became a British intelligence officer and foreign service officer in Algiers. She followed him there and spent about a year as a dressmaker's model in the hope that this would, I guess, pan out. And when the relationship cooled, she got a telegram from her mother. And her mother said, I'm going to be touring Europe. Could you come join me? And with no great prospects in Algiers and this relationship not panning out, she decided to meet her mother in Hungary, in Budapest. And the two women moved westward until they ended up in Berlin. And Mildred, who was never a great student of music, decided that she loved the culture in Germany, that she wanted to study music. By all accounts of everyone that I've ever talked to or read of, she wasn't much of a piano player, but she wanted to study the piano, and she was already at that point 33, 34 years old and was going to embark on a new career. So her mother said, come back to the United States with me. And she said, no, I'm going to stay here and see how it works out.
Before we, because we're running out of time, but I really want to ask you this. She did come back to the United States. In a nutshell, what happened when she came back?
When she came back, she was tried in 1949 for treason. She was convicted on one count out of the 8 or so charges that were presented against her for performing in a play called Vision of Invasion that was supposed to demoralize the invading, the D-Day invasion troops. She served 12 years at Alderson Prison in West Virginia, where Martha Stewart served her sentence recently. And she was paroled in 1961 at the age of 60. She served out the rest of her life, her parole, working in a convent school in Columbus, Ohio, teaching young girls who were destined for the religious life. She was pretty much with the cloistered nuns. And she died in 1988 at the age of 87 of colon cancer. But she lived a very quiet life. Her entire first part of her life was dedicated to trying to find fame and fortune and notoriety. And she spent the rest of her life trying to evade it.
Axis Sally, the American voice of Nazi Germany, Richard Lucas, is my guest. Thank you so much for joining me, and the book is available in bookstores. That's correct?
Thank you.